Madison Cawthorn recently ruffled a few feathers following his claim that he was asked to join in some drug-fueled sex parties with members of Congress. In fact, I want to show you the statements that he made earlier on a podcast. Take a look, and then we'll show you the reaction. Take a look.
The sexual perversion that goes on in Washington, I mean, being kind of a young guy in Washington, with the average age is probably 60 or 70, and I look at all these people, a lot of them that I've looked up to through my life. I've always paid attention to politics, guys that, then all of a sudden you get invited to, like, oh, hey, we're going to have kind of a sexual get-together at one of our homes. You should come. And I'm like, what did you just ask me to come to? Yeah. And then you realize they're asking you to come to an orgy. Yeah. Or the fact that, there's some of the people that are leading on the movement to try and remove, addiction in our country. And then you watch them do, a key bump of cocaine right in front of you. And it's like, wow, this is wild.
No, it's not just wild.
Sexual anarchy.
That's what he's explaining. He just described sexual anarchy. There's all sorts of sexual anarchy.
Sexual anarchy.
Yep. All right. So look, that's interesting. Now, following that, of course, House GOP members were not happy about this. They were furious because they were giving away their sex parties, or maybe they weren't invited. There's that too. And so they demanded that Cawthorn name some names. Yes, please. We would love to know who's doing those parties. Would really, really love to know. In fact, here's Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska saying, Madison's stuff irritates me because it's not true. Really? He'll have to either name names or retract it. He then also had a meeting with Kevin McCarthy, in which Cawthorn kind of backpedaled a little bit, because this is fun. McCarthy said that Cawthorn conceded some of his remarks were untrue and exaggerated. Not about the sex and drug parties, probably. Just about, him being asked to attend them. Because who's going to ask Madison Cawthorn to an orgy? Seriously. Look, I say that because Madison Cawthorn is Captain Buzzkill. All right? Now, in the interview, he claims he watched, this is according to McCarthy, he claims he watched people do cocaine. Then when he comes in, he tells me, he says he thinks he saw maybe a staffer in a parking garage from 100 yards away. Hilarious. Hilarious walk back. Wow. All right, so now, look, there are Republicans, many Republicans, that are pissed off at him for narking on them, right? But here you have a former Republican candidate and just QAnon nut that decided to actually jump to his aid. But what's interesting is that there might be a little bit of truth to what she says, just a little bit. And I never thought I'd say this about Lauren Witzke, but she is the far-right former Republican Senate nominee for Delaware. And here's what she said in the Stu Peters show.
We will never know who was on that list. And we know that there were seated representatives on that list. The most powerful people in the world were buying a service from Jeffrey Epstein. They were buying children. They were buying prostitutes from Jeffrey Epstein. And we will never know because there is no justice in this country.
When we hear congressmen like Congressman Cawthorn speak out in this manner, we have to applaud them. We have to stand with them. Because what he's doing is he's showing us behind the scenes. He's showing us behind the curtain. Yes. The emperor's not just naked. The emperor's having sex with a kid.
Yes.
Okay?
And not only that, now McCarthy's getting involved.
McCarthy.
He heard about it. It sparked some outrage. So it's upset some people in the GOP that
I bet
Madison
it
Cawthorn
upset
would
some
have the
people in the GOP.
audacity to expose them for the orgy attending, drug sniffing, children raping people that they are.
All right, so okay. This is an interesting story, right? Because, look, obviously what they were referencing was Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein liked them young. In fact, that was an open secret. Everybody knew. Everybody knew about it. And so, at least everybody in power. And so here in this situation, you have an insane person actually saying things that have truth to it. I mean, there is a big kernel of truth in some of these charges, right? As far as like sex and drugs and politics, absolutely. Of course there is. People on both sides of the aisle have been caught utilizing the services of sex workers. Now, before I get into that, I'm pro-sex worker. I think that's fine. I think you should be able to legally, have the services of a sex worker. I think that's totally fine. Now, of course, there are people, and what makes them hypocrites here on the Republican side, the right-wing side, is that they're against that, and they're against sex workers. But there's also, of course, them getting caught with sex workers doing drugs. Again, I think drugs should be legalized. But they're having an affair. I don't really care about that, but that's what they're doing. They're getting their mistresses to go and have an abortion. There's so much hypocrisy going on. And again, these are members of the far right that are doing this, the right wing. And so that happens. That does happen. And it's, of course, happening still. And yes, there are also happen to be people that do abuse children. You have powerful people, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, very wealthy, very powerful people, Matt Gaetz, doing trafficking. Notice how they don't mention Matt Gaetz. You also have, though, wealthy celebrities, Woody Allen, Kevin Spacey, all these people, right? But then you go to Republicans, elected Republicans like that had been elected into office. Dennis Hastert, known pedophile, people seeking office. Roy Moore. Rick Rober. So no, Rick Rober is an interesting case as well, because I hadn't heard of him, but he was a Missouri Republican who won elections, even though there was all of these rumors that were following him around of, physical, psychological, sexual abuse of his own children. Some of that abuse was, again, psychological abuse involved drowning puppies. I mean, what a disgusting person, real sick guy. He got elected, and his Republican Party, before they ended up expelling him, basically didn't get involved in his election. They let him beat a Democrat, and then, even when all these rumors and all these allegations were well known, they didn't get involved until after he had won his election, and then they removed him. Well, we'd still rather have this guy than a Democrat. Disgusting. So that said, there is truth in this. There are people that get into power that have some rather large skeletons in their closets, and yes, a lot of them happen to be right-wing, but it's not exclusive. It's not an exclusive right-wing, left-wing thing. And so, now, does that mean I believe in her QAnon nonsense? Oh, no, obviously not. Of course. QAnon is insane. It's fringe. It's, and by the way, the main tenets of QAnon is that it's all Democrats that are, coming in and doing the sex trafficking of the children and then going and drinking their adrenochrome, the life extension technology and things like that. No, that's bonkers. Total insanity. No, what's really going on here is very, very simple, right? What you have is people that are abusers that get attracted to positions of power. That's really it. And they do so because, and this is something that has happened all throughout time, from time immemorial. If there's a position of power, there's somebody in there who's got some proclivities. I was like, if I get in that position of power, I can actually, maybe I'll get away with exploiting some people, some powerless people. Allows them to prey on people. Think about this. White supremacists becoming police officers. That's it right there. Being able to, go and exploit that power to go after the African American community. You have greedy and corrupt assholes that become CEOs or politicians. And of course, one of the more famous examples, pedophiles becoming Catholic priests. Now, does that mean that every single person in power is engaging in that, or there's some gigantic conspiracy? No, of course not. Of course not. Just be, aware that this does happen. and that you should probably take some allegations pretty seriously about the people in power and actually do those investigations. But it also doesn't mean that you should listen to nuts like Stu Peters and Lauren Witzke.